It came up in a conversation about getting business cards, and we kind of put it off. As long as I've been here, I didn't even know they existed, but Doug sent me his. And I can get them for you, but here's my question. The sample business card has this address, my phone number, and my fax number. Does that benefit you to have cards that have your names on them without your information? Or do you want other information, or do you not want cards? And was that perfectly clear enough?
Yeah. Well, a card with your information
Yeah.
isn't of much use.
That's,
So I'm assuming that,
now, you could put other information on it if you wanted me to do it that way. But to put this card, the only difference is one has your name on it, but all of this information for this building, I don't know that that would benefit the board members. Unless it's what you want. I'm good to do it. But I have not ordered.
But that's what his card looked like?
This is what the ones in the past have been like. Obviously, that's the old logo, we fixed that, but. So I guess the question is, want them like this? Do you want them with personal information, or do you not want them?
Don't spend the money on me.
yeah, what's the purpose? I mean, is the purpose like you speak with somebody and
You know,
I
I
refer you
honestly
like
don't
here's
know.
contact, here's the point of contact, or is it here's my card, feel free to reach out anytime?
This
When you
was brought
attend
up
the
to me.
state event, it's real nice. Of course, we didn't get to attend that this year. To have that card to give anyone that you're talking to
But
in
it should be
regards
your
to.
personal information, yeah.
They are, I think she told me $35
I think that's whenever you get paid.
per batch.
Yeah, and you get a huge,
Uh-huh.
Yeah, if you go to the state event, you know, vendors will want to have cars, but actually do.
But
Right.
they'll be
Yeah.
contacting me.
Unless they change the information, yeah.
Right.
yeah.
I mean, and I don't need the answer to this, but I mean, originally I was just sort of gonna blanket order these, especially with new members.
Right.
But when I looked at the content, it made me go, this might not be what they want.
Yeah. I think if we go ahead, I think it should be the information of the board member needs to be contacted, but I'll defer to my senior board members on what you feel.
I'm not a senior. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
Okay, hi. I think that we should have, I would prefer to have my own information because like if I go to a building, I'd love to be able to have them get in touch with me by cell and not have to go through you. And I think that'd be annoying to you if we had 7 of us going out and, you know, when we would visit a building or whatever, then we would give a card and then you'd somehow have to be the middleman. And anyway, that's my thought.
In my personal opinion,
Yeah,
I don't need cards. I've done just fine for the last 2 years without them. If somebody wants a card to contact with me, I just give them one of my business cards anyway. So I don't see the need for it. You can save the $35.
I already said that, very statement.
I'm good either way. I can get,
You want some cards before you go? Okay, yeah, I mean, I do my business card also, so I'm probably fine. I mean, do you need to order them, like if Doug would feel like that's what he wants?
oh, I can order them.
Yeah.
I don't have to order for everybody, and
Yeah.
they can
Do you want
say
it?
whatever you want them to say. I just didn't think it was a good idea to blanket order 7
Yeah,
with,
yeah, so just see if he wants them then.
so do it
Yeah.
by individual.
Yes.
If they want them and what they want
Yeah.
on them, if they
Yeah,
want them.
yeah.
All right, I will send you an email and you can just let me know.
So you look at us being fiscally responsible.
yeah.
Yes, yes. I have others. The new board meeting, you had asked me about that.
Uh-huh.
We have the information on it, but it is not open for registration, even at this point.
Okay, so you'll have that,
Right, I gave
Okay.
them what I have, but I
Okay.
can't register,
Okay,
which isn't like they're physically going, they're going to be webinars
Okay.
that'll be open you know, we buy.
Oh, good, and then they can watch them when they need. And then we
Actually,
could
any of
even,
you can watch.
we could refresh
Yes,
too. Good,
exactly.
good, okay.
And,
I love education.
I need your blue binders. If you didn't bring them, you don't have
I don't have one.
them.
That's why I was like, I looked, I'm like, I don't have one.
No, you would not. Actually, I haven't got that one back yet.
Well, and I've added stuff to mine on my own too, sorry.
Okay.
So,
Clean it
What
up.
I'll do is,
I
your
can't, it's
stuff
like,
will stay in it, but
all of
the
our,
stuff that gets updated will get updated.
okay.
I'll drop mine off.
Sorry,
Okay, that'd be great, and you can just drop, either one, you can just drop it off at any
did you
time.
see that?
And the last thing I have is I need to get with you about the photos.
Yes.
That's it for me.
That's all you did.
I think that was 4 things.
Okay.
I thought tonight maybe I would just take an opportunity to kind of update you on some things that we have been working on in the background as we've gone through this first semester, and kind of let you know where some things are. So first of all, let me talk a little bit about elementary extracurriculars and after school. Because of being on the hybrid schedule and those kind of things, we had put elementary athletics on a pause for this first semester, and we're considering what we would do next semester. And we're still open to investigating, maybe doing something second semester, depending on what's happening with cases and the ability of students to get there. But we've used the opportunity to kind of step back and say, from a couple different directions, what do we want to do with after school in terms of academic programs or clubs? And then what kind of things would happen after school in terms of athletics. And so the athletic directors have been leading people affiliated with elementary athletics in a conversation of what programs, what sports do we really want to have at the elementary level, and how can those be strengthened, how can they become better feeder programs, those kind of things up in the middle school and high school. And so that task force is kind of looking at that matrix of the sports, what would be happening. And then from an activity standpoint, we've been looking at the partners that we have for after-school programs, particularly in our 21st century schools. So the grant that's available through Title I for those schools, the competitive grant that they've applied for, and we have different cohorts of schools. When we went to apply for one this fall, particularly to assist Monger, it became evident that the way we were conducting those after-school programs kind of in silos, and it wasn't serving us well. Trying to get that grant. So we are having a coordinated conversation about how do we articulate those after-school programs, and then how can we, as we have those programs, not just in 21st century schools, but more broadly in the schools, how can we make sure that we are embedding good social and emotional learning, character, soft skills pieces into that? So during the day, a lot of our social and emotional learning is being driven by the competencies from CASEL, an organization for social and emotional learning that the counselors are really connected to, and have been learning a lot. So we want to take those CASEL competencies and build those into the after-school programming, and have training for advisors and coaches about that, embed some of those curricular pieces in that. So we're creating a true program, not just a bunch of isolated things that are happening. Our goal with that would then be is that we would have that sequence of events that would be and training for those folks who would be doing that, so that they're not necessarily just left on their own. So that's, we've been having.
Hey, Beba, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you mute your mic for right now?
If I can figure it out, yeah.
There you go. All right, thank you.
So those conversations are happening, and then as a piece related to that, Today I was on a phone call, with the Community Foundation where Goshen College is applying for a grant to do more work embedded within Beaufort County as a whole. And one of the things they would like to do as a piece of that grant is to offer more, camps, day camps, summer camps, those kind of opportunities, have Goshen College athletes come out into the community and mentor students and be connected to after-school athletics, in addition to strengthening their articulation agreements for dual college and early college opportunities and credits from Ivy Tech, and a couple other things. But the pieces that would relate to us would be those camps, day camps, after-school connections, mentoring from athletes, and those kind of things that layer into this. So those are some things that we're trying to do to bring some unity and coherence to those programs so that we can make a more compelling case as we would apply for grants and as we would look at things. And with after-school programming being something that we're considering as a piece of the referendum to support that social and emotional learning for kids, this then is a plan for what that's going to look like so that we can articulate that to the community.
How will you, when you're talking about that to the community, about the social and emotional learning, how will you describe that to the public?
So what would happen is within the CASEL competencies, there are 5 basic things like perseverance. They actually overlap quite nicely with our pride characteristics. And so the idea is that these are nationally recognized competencies for being a successful adult that are carried through in what they're advocating as social and emotional learning. So there's a lot of support for that and a lot of materials to be able to do that. So the goal would be is that whether you are on, doing something academic or you're doing some kind of club or you're doing a sport, you walk away from any of those extracurricular experiences knowing more about yourself and how to interact with other people, how to be part of a team, how to collaborate and cooperate with others, how to regulate your own behavior, all of those pieces.
And that grant that the Community Foundation is doing with Goshen College is not any of our title money, right?
No,
Okay.
no, they would get the grant, and then depending on what happens with the Community Foundation or not, they also have an ask into Lilly Endowment for money as well. They would put the program in place and then reach out to us and say which particular schools might we be interested in partnering with from our perspective to have those athletes come and mentor and work with students.
Okay. And with us having students across the school system, and all the different, with transfer students and whatever, how do we break that down when we look at a school that may not look like it needs social and emotional help? Because maybe it falls into a demographic that might not appear that way. However, inside of that school, we have children that are layered all over, and despite how they may dress, what they may live in, how they may act, they're still having that. How do you put that money, those grants and everything, and spread it across the school system so that it's benefiting everybody?
So when you've heard Dr. Tony England and Dr. Shepard and Dr. Stevens talk about the multi-tiered systems of support, the MTSS system, the whole goal of an MTSS system is that we would identify what are core learnings that every kid gets, regardless. And so that's the tier 1 that happens. So within social and emotional learning, when they're looking at those CASEL competencies and the work that counselors and social workers are doing through the counseling grant with that Lilly money over the past few years has been to identify what does every kid get. So it's distributed across all buildings to all students. And then as kids bubble up, needing more, or through a pre-assessment and a post-assessment, we see some kids need some additional support. Social workers working with kids realize a kid might need some more, then they move to tier 2 or to tier 3, and then they get the additional support from a counselor or a social worker or outside agent. So the goal is that we're giving a core, experience around these traits and these characteristics to all kids.
Okay.
So in this instance, what would be happening is, that extracurricular and that expectation and what we would be looking at giving all kids would be the way we do extracurriculars and all kids get it. Then it might be that it can have a different flavor in different buildings. So one of the things we've talked about is Lifeline has had a long-standing relationship with Hawthorne Elementary. So what we want to do is how can we layer what Lifeline is already doing into this? It's not like we're going to go to Lifeline and say, no, we don't need you anymore. It's how do we get it connected and make sure that there's some consistency of experiences. So we're not going to say to any of our partners, we don't need you anymore. We just want to make sure that we're all kind of speaking the same language, cumulatively building for kids, and they're hearing a same spiral, consistent message all the time. And that's what's happening in our classrooms too.
Okay, and so that's, like that, those are pieces too that we need to share with those that are doing anything with the referendum, is possibly understanding what that means. Because my question was kind of directing to see how you would answer that, because out in the public, like how do we explain that this doesn't just fall in a certain bracket of our school system, this actually benefits everybody? And then that goes back to the need for counselors and social workers, because as you go around the different schools, there might be a perception that one school needs something more trauma-informed care than others. But just because it's dressed up and hidden differently doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And I think that we're missing a lot of children in some of our schools that need a lot more than what they're receiving because it's dressed up differently. And I think the need for the counselors and the social workers that are hosted in these schools to teach these parents that it's not a bad thing to seek help for your children or even for yourself, despite what you might believe is appearance-wise. I think that we're missing that. I think we've got so many labels that we've talked about before, but there are other ones that need to happen, and we're really missing these children at some of these schools.
Yeah. And
Do you agree?
the notion that, I mean, we've always known that there's a need, but over the past year, that need has risen exponentially among all kinds of students. And there are varying degrees of trauma. So when you look at the traditional ACEs study, I mean, there are 10 categories there. So some students may have 1, some may have 3, some may have 8. But the idea is that to different degrees, many of our students experience some form of trauma where they need that assistance. And so for us, we want to make sure that our teachers are all familiar and speaking a similar language so they can reinforce and support kids. Then again, social workers can come in and do a basic level of something for everybody additionally, counselors as well, and then we move up. One of the big things that the counseling grant has shifted people's thinking about is trying to be proactive. Like, what can we do in that tier 1 to head things off and to teach kids and to prepare them, also have conversations with families so that you're preventing things or dealing with it in a proactive, upfront way rather than always being reactive. Because for a lot of instances, and the unfortunate thing is that the pandemic has forced us to slip back a little bit because we are now, I mean, we're having to be reactive a lot because of the way the situation is currently. But if we can be proactive and get in front of it and make sure that we're giving most kids that consistent messaging and expectation and level of care, then we can put our attention into that next tier and the next tier. And they talked about it in terms of the counseling training, in terms of living in triage, where you're constantly just putting out fires and reacting when a kid comes into your office and all of these things rather than trying to answer it on the front side. So if we can be more proactive, then we don't live in a constant state of, our people who are trying to help kids don't live in a constant state of crisis.
Well, figuring out too financially how we balance that out when it comes to the referendum on the aspect of what would we need the referendum money for and how it goes hand in hand with complementing this so that it doesn't wash itself out, because then we run into that problem.
Because when we're talking about transportation and safety, which was the basis of the previous one, I mean, that notion of safety is mental health and taking care of students and taking care of them from that standpoint as well. So we think a little differently about that notion of safety, and that we want to make sure that we're wrapping our arms around kids and taking care of them.
And that's why we need to go deeper into this and explaining, because I think some people would think transportation and safety, and then the original one, if I'm right, I wasn't here, you and I weren't here, it was your transportation and then the security of each one of the buildings, right? Is that what your transportation and safety was?
Entrances and
Yes.
and
So,
external security,
Right.
Now we're asking us to think a little bit more about
Yeah,
internal
so then
security.
we've got to get creative with adding transportation and safety on that line when we're, yeah.
Any other questions regarding any of that work?
I think it's important that, you know, with the referendum in mind, we gotta analyze what we're currently doing in after-school programming, academically, athletically. We have to show the community that, you know, we are looking at all ways to either, put the program together to achieve the highest potential grant money that we can, working with partners within the community, Goshen College, and receiving some of their, grant money through their, you know, students. So I think it's important to say, you know, we're just not going to the referendum and say, give us a bunch of money, and then we'll figure it out. So as I hear these things, I think this is exactly what we need to continue to do, and this is the message that we need to get out.
Well, and last time, when I would stand in front of the audience and say, you know, part of the money will go to after-school programming, I mean, we didn't have a comprehensive picture of what that would look like.
Right.
And so I knew going forward this time, we had to have our act collectively better to be able to say, this is what it'll look like. This
Right.
is what we would be shooting for if we're able to do this.
And I think we need to say, this is where it is now, and this is where we want it to go.
Yep.
And I think that vision's important when you're asking people what you're asking them to do in a referendum.
Yeah, and in our thinking right now, and the planning that we're doing right now, we're gonna kind of create the master kind of perfect matrix of what we think it could look like, and then back it up and say, okay, what's the starter matrix? That if we wanna get there in 3 years, what is it that we need to do now?
Sure.
And have that conversation, so we're realistic in what we phase in and try to do.
And what did you call it, Castle? It's Castle Learning?
CASEL.
C-A-S-E-L, Castle, okay.
Yep.
Have we always used, is that new?
They've emerged in the last 3 years from the work that the counselors have done in understanding social and emotional learning.
Okay,
So the Patch training people from California have talked a lot about them, and the relationship we have with Horizon Education Alliance and Sarah Metzler there. She keeps going back to that resource, so they are a known resource on social and emotional learning. A second update I want to provide you is that last January we had applied for and received a residency planning grant in order for us to think about a way to bring in and introduce and help induct new teachers into our district in a way that would help them be successful in transitioning into Elkhart Community Schools. And so with a conversation that's been happening with IU South Bend and instructional leadership folks, and we've pulled in some EL teachers and had Carrie part of the conversation, we are landing in a place right now where we're sort of hammering out the final steps of this to where we would apply to the state of Indiana for a residency implementation grant, which would allow us to receive $15,000 per resident to be able to put towards this process. And what we are basically looking at is a kind of a two-pronged program. So say I just finished my undergraduate program and have my teaching license, and I want to come teach at Elkhart Community Schools. I could just apply to normal through human resources and get a regular teaching position. But what this residency program would allow us to do would be able to take applicants for, say, we do up to 12 residents. And those folks would come in and would receive a first-year contract with us. And in exchange for that first-year contract, and the training that goes along with it, they would sign a memorandum of understanding to stay with us for 5 years. And then during that year, they would team teach with a mentor teacher. That mentor teacher and the resident would go through EL or English Learner coursework, ENL coursework, with IU South Bend to add certification as an EL teacher because of the need that we have as a district and for teachers to understand English learners. So they would receive their compensation, team teach, take this coursework, and then at the end of that year, have licensure to be able to teach EL or better understand English learners to teach within the district. and would have a placement in one of our buildings, dependent upon successfully completing that first year and a successful interview process. So the goal here would be that we would help, because the research is saying that about half of teachers are out of the profession in 3 to 5 years, and you lose another percentage after that. So this would allow us to be able to invest into people who are going to invest and commit to us for multiple years after that residency, and ensure that we have a group of teachers, particularly with the demands from the state regarding English language learners and caseloads of English learners assigned to particular teachers. So this helps meet a need that we as a district have. We would be able to use our Title II federal money and our Title III federal money to pay for that coursework, because both of those can have funds steered towards professional development. And then the $15,000 from the state would help offset the salary piece and the stipend for the mentor.
So you get 15,000
Per
resident. And so the mentor gets a stipend in that first year.
Mm-hmm.
And the resident gets a stipend?
Would get their contracted salary and benefits.
Okay.
I love this.
Don't they usually get, like, if they apply for, what would be the difference between just applying for a
So
job?
if they apply for a job, they will have a mentor.
Right,
They won't have the opportunity to get the EL coursework paid for and supported.
Right.
And they won't have the intense team teaching relationship with their mentor. They would be in their own classroom responsible for their own students. Whereas in the residency, it's a learning experience, much like a medical residency, where you go through the day and do things like a doctor,
Right.
but you don't have your own patients per se.
so they don't have a classroom?
They don't have a classroom.
Okay,
They
so
would be
that's the
assigned with a mentor to a classroom.
So we get part of the 15,000, then the mentor gets part of the 15,000, and then part of it goes towards the classroom.
Then the classwork we would take care of out of professional development grant.
Okay.
I just love this. This is exactly what we need to be doing to be proactive for the teacher shortage and the needs of our district, to get these people and give them the opportunity to train with a mentor, which many people leave and come into, and I don't care what it is, that's even new doctors don't really like to come into a situation where you say, here's all your autonomy, just go see patients and have at it. They actually are looking to be mentored that first year at least, because they know what they don't know. And I think there's a lot that brand new teachers would gain from this. And I think the security and the kind of caring that we could show them that this is a place where we care about them. And not only would they be obligated, obviously, for the 5 years to stay, but I think they'd want to stay, which would be a culture shift in a way, and a really good, this is, to me, it's such a win.
Any concern with the teacher shortage and how that would impact this program?
So South Bend has been doing a similar kind of thing. They received a federal grant. And the difficulty that they encountered was that they attempted to pay a stipend, I think 10, 15,000, maybe 15,000 in there somewhere, and it wasn't enough to attract anybody. I mean, if you come out and you have your teaching license and it's a teacher's market to get a job, why would you not necessarily do that? And particularly, although if your parents have insurance and you can stay on the plan through 26, you're okay, but if not, that benefit piece is something that's of concern to people as well. So South Bend bumped their stipend amount to, I think, 24,000, if I remember correctly, in theirs. And the teachers going through their program get a full master's degree. So it's a little different, but you needed to bump the stipend that high. So for us, our thought was, well, if we're paying them a beginning teacher's salary, they go through this year with us, they take part in our professional development, they're going to get nurtured and helped along and get that support that a typical first first-year teacher wouldn't get, in addition to that added certification area, which boosts their license and helps in the long run. So our thought is that if we're offering them the opportunity to basically come in and be compensated at a level of a first-year teacher, then we necessarily wouldn't have that problem. And the attraction of being supported and nurtured through that first year would hopefully help build the rest of the program.
Don't get mad at me when I ask you this, please. I thought we already had teacher mentors.
We do.
Okay,
So
so what's the difference between this and that?
So
Like,
these people will go through that same mentoring program, but in addition to that, their mentor teacher and they will go through the licensure program at IU South Bend to add a certification area to their license
okay,
and receive the support through the university and through that program
for EL.
for EL, while not being responsible for teaching a class full-time.
Okay, okay. That's the difference between coming in as a new teacher. But as a new teacher, you do get benefits.
You'd get
Yeah,
your
so
contract, your benefits,
So this teacher resident is actually like doing an extended
student teaching. Exactly.
while getting an extra certification that would not limit them. Like
Right.
suddenly they're not going to be like, okay, you signed this 5-year contract and we gave you this EL certification and this is what our expectation is.
Right.
So if they wanted to teach like English or whatever, this would just be a complement inside of their classroom. They're not going to suddenly be like labeled as an EL teacher.
Or they may decide, I really like this. Or
Right.
we may ask of them that they serve as an EL teacher of record. So again, they wouldn't be teaching EL, but they would help with individualized learning plans for students and support students that way. They would still get their main other teaching assignment.
But you get where I'm asking, like if well, here I am and I have this 5-year contract and I'm kind of like stuck because if you tell me I want you to be an EL teacher and they have this contract with us, then they're stuck doing that if that wasn't what their intention was.
And if we find ourselves in a pinch where we're needing EL, we'll have those conversations with them. But it's not that they'll be chained to being an EL teacher.
How binding is it for them to actually stay? And is there like a non-compete if they leave or what? How do you manage that?
They'd have to pay back the.
We basically would do an MOU to which they would pay back portions of what has been spent on them, which would then encourage them to stay. But at the end of that MOU period, they could choose to leave.
Yeah.
Steve, this is Kevin. Steve touched on an important point is Beth Williams has had conversations with me. We were looking at numbers and the state likely will be pushing analysis of certified ENL staff with students that they support. And so the big thing about this to me is that it helps us try to move towards a better ratio before the state mandates something to us that we can't afford. I think this is a great program.
Yeah, I think it sounds amazing. My only concern would be how do we make sure that we sell that to them that, well, you, not me, I don't have anything to do with that, that's you. And making sure that they know that, like, if I wanted to be a history teacher, but I did this, and then all of a sudden you're like, well, I'm sorry, Kelly, but for the next 5 years, you can't teach history. And can any of our current teachers qualify for this ENL qualification?
We had just received a grant from the state where we are doing, I forget the number of EL teachers, but we asked teachers who wanted to get the licensure.
Yeah.
And we applied for a grant and received it.
Yeah, because I feel like elementary teachers, that would be an excellent addition for them, especially because if we barely have and can parents apply for that? Can paraprofessionals, they can't get any,
added licensure area.
Because I feel like right off the bat, when you started talking about this as a grant, I'm thinking that would be an excellent opportunity for elementary teachers to have that as an addition, not to add another thing to elementary, Carrie. I'm not trying to add another thing,
Well,
but.
all those mentor teachers, right, that we pairing up with the resident, will be getting that.
We'll be getting
Right.
Together.
But I didn't know if current teachers could get that also.
Well, that's what the members would be getting.
Yeah.
Members would come out of the program.
Oh, they would come out of the, that's what you're saying. Duo.
Class together.
They're doing the classes together.
Okay. But say if they don't have a mentor, could somebody apply to do that also?
Well, like I said, this year we had applied for some funds from the state, so we're adding EL licensure and high ability licensure to some teachers' licenses through a similar program. I mean,
Okay.
they're going through the coursework and are receiving a stipend for doing that.
Okay.
And we've done retention, payments like this with speech pathologists, with school psychologists.
Mhm.
We've got a fairly long history of doing that.
Mhm.
We're expanding the scope of it by including the E&L instructors.
Kevin, do you mind repeating what you said about something about the fact that it's going to be expensive later on if they mandate something for us? And so it sounds to me like we're being proactive by doing this.
Yes, conversations that Beth and I have had have been about the state starting to kind of look at and maybe push the ratios between certified E&L teachers and the number of the students that they serve. And, you know, as we were looking at our current numbers, we just don't have enough certified teachers. And so really, this program will help us try to improve our ratios. And, you know, I don't want to be flat-footed and, you know, a couple of years from now, the state mandates that, you know, we're way off the numbers and we have to hire X number of teachers certified in language. So this helps address that. I think it's very proactive. Does that help?
Yeah, I really hadn't heard that they might mandate that. And so that's helpful. I love the whole proactive idea that you mentioned. Thank you.
They're starting to really look at the caseload numbers that you have, and similar to special education, where a teacher is expected to serve a student who might have stronger needs and a severe disability. Similarly, they would like interventions or an EL teacher to work with a student who has a lower proficiency level. Students that are at a higher proficiency level could simply be under the direction or under the supervision of a teacher of record. So this would be somebody who would check in with them on a consultation basis and those kind of things, and their individualized learning plan would not be as intense or involved as maybe a student with a lower proficiency. So having this you know, cadre of teachers out there who have been through this program and have this understanding, they could serve as those teacher of record teachers to help with those ratios, and or they could directly serve students.
Do you have numbers, Steve, again, on how many diverse cultures, languages, and whatever our district is serving?
That I do not have off the top of my head, no, but I could check into that.
Okay. That'd be cool to know. And it would also be kind of a justification, I guess, to show how important this would be, maybe.
The number's a lot higher than you would anticipate.
I bet.
Languages, yeah. It's interesting.
Easily, and I could fairly easily run the EL report in PowerSchool and see what the number of languages are. So.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions regarding the residency? Just quickly to let you know in terms of the equity plan and equity training, Thursday, as I indicated in my news and notes, we will have the second of our Equity Now trainings with Carmen Williams from Harvard. And a couple different times this fall, we had planned for me to do a town hall meeting with the Citizens for a Better Elkhart. We were going to be over at the church and have that. Due to something on my part one time and something someplace else another, we've had to keep moving those because of COVID-related issues. So the last time I spoke with them, they're saying that they wanted to push that until after the holidays and see where we are and see where things are. But they have sent me just kind of a list of questions related to, very similar to the ones we answered when we met with their leadership group. Cheryl, Tony, Brad, Sarita, Maggie, and I think that was everybody, wasn't sure. Met and talked with their leadership. They basically would kind of like to revisit those questions with a larger group of people and just ask them other things regarding the district. So related to that, my goal will be to get to that group after the first of the year. Another thing that we're doing in the background of COVID, and you're hearing from the schools on their plans and things, and a couple of them have referenced ethos and inquiry training. A couple of instructional coaches from Ethos have been working with groups of elementary teachers. So they worked with a group from a handful of schools, and then they've moved on to another cohort from a handful of schools to just talk in terms of how do we engage students in inquiry-based learning, asking questions, figuring things out by experience and asking questions, and then writing and thinking about that. So that work is happening across the elementary schools, and very interestingly, John and Douglas, who have been doing that training, took part in a SMECANS literacy training with worked with our elementary teachers on literacy, and many of the techniques that Christina and her team talked about, they have picked up and are now building into what they're doing. So there are connections about reading informational text that they've taken away from. And then finally, we are working on our college and career readiness piece, particularly looking at the middle schools. Currently in 8th grade, students take a preparing for college and career class, and generally that class has been kind of instructor dependent, that it depended on who the teacher was for the course as to what experiences kids had and whether they did a capstone project in there. At Pierre Moran for the past couple of years, other than this spring, but prior to that a couple times in the semester, and I did a capstone project where you go and you would hear the students present on, these are my skills and my personality traits, and this is the career I think I'd like to do. This is where I'd potentially like to go to school, what I see myself doing in so many years, etc. So that capstone project is something that we would intend to hold on to. So because we have some funds left in the Lilly grant due to some activities that we weren't able to do, we've contracted with project-based learning consultants and social and emotional and college career readiness people through Horizon Education Alliance to help lead our preparing for college and career instructors through developing a very solid sequence of experiences and lessons for a semester around that. And a big part of that will be use of the Naviance system, that is the student interest inventory and counseling and school counseling sites that students have a login access to. So that Naviance system will sort of form the skeleton of what that would look like, and then they will build that out with additional experiences, including things like manufacturing and career quest and some other opportunities that kids will take. So the goal there is to develop a really nice sequence that students would go through, do that capstone project, have in mind, this is where I want to go as I'm going into the freshman division. They go through their year at the freshman division, confirm or perhaps change which school of study they're wanting to go into, and then be better positioned eventually.
When is that going to start?
So that training will start next semester with the teachers and looking at designing that, with the goal being that that would be the new way the course would be taught beginning in the fall.
What again would the Horizon Alliance contribution be?
So they have a couple people who work on career-based and apprenticeships and those kind of things and have their hands in career development. So they'll help Sarah Metzler, who's looking at social and emotional and work ethic skills, employability skills, is part of the conversation. And then they also have some people who are specialists in project-based learning. So we'll be looking at that as well. So that group of people will help our teachers look at activities that we already have. Plus we have a website with web-based learning experiences called Defined Learning that we have paid for out of the Lilly grant for a 3-year contract. And there are experiences in there for career exploration. So our own teachers, that resource, Naviance is a resource, and then Horizon folks to help us analyze what we're doing should help us develop a pretty good 18-week sequence for those courses.
Do you mind having some sort of a printout for us on who would be getting what out of the portion of the Lilly grant? Is that something, or is Is that not for us to see, or what would,
No, I can provide you a breakdown of how that's being funded.
I'd love that, thanks.
During this training for next fall, is there gonna be any, thought put into the current eighth graders that will be starting next year at the ninth grade level that will not be, experiencing this new, format?
Well, part of it will be is that, I mean, as they're developing stuff and looking at that defined learning curriculum and all those pieces, I mean, the teachers will have access to those things and can be piloting and trying some things. So the encouragement would be to, you know, see how this works and would this be a successful element to make part of what we're doing in the fall? And that's always the problem with developing something from a
Right,
regular
there's gonna be a
standpoint,
gap.
is there's a gap where, you know, what about the kids sitting in front of me that aren't going to benefit from the math program we adopt next year?
Right.
So when you see the gaps and then you're thinking, oh, what about these kids in front of me? The encouragement will be to try some of these things that we're developing. It won't be, you know, a clear, defined curriculum
Sure.
as it would be for the fall. That was everything I wanted to provide you an update on of the things that have been kind of happening behind the scenes. A little bit of work while we've been working our way through COVID and everything else. So.
Works.
All right, if we have no questions, we can move into the executive session for just a little bit.
Yeah. Yours now, or?
Yeah.
Now?
Oh, well, no, mine's after.
Okay.
But,
All right. 'Cause
but
I
if
had
you need
the
it,
Do,
then,
do we have to sign out and go back in?
Yes, the second calendar event you'll need to join. I'll be switching this over to that meeting shortly.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, this meeting is called to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the
Of
United
the United States of America,
to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The Elkhart Promise will be read by Sue Diver.
The Elkhart Promise. Every student is known by name, challenged and supported by highly effective staff, and in partnership with the community, will graduate career college ready and life ready.
Okay, the invitation to speak protocol. Are we doing the virtual also?
Yes.
Okay, so if you are present in the room, you have the opportunity to fill out a white paper that gives you the opportunity to put your name, address, and information, and your subject, and you will be called at the end of the meeting to speak. You will have 3 minutes to state your information on your topic. If you are virtual, you have the opportunity to email.
There's a link at the bottom of the video.
Okay, so
For a
there's,
format to fill out, and then we will call their phone number.
perfect. So there's a link at the bottom of the video. You click it on, fill out the format, and then at the end of the meeting, they will call you and you will come into the meeting. But the same thing, we keep it to a very pleasant 3-minute conversation. So we have the invitation to call. Okay, so consent items will be our minutes, claims, gift acceptance, fundraisers, grants, conference leave requests, and personnel report.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Discussion from the board, which is always our opportunity for Sue to talk about our gifts.
Tonight we have a gift from David and Nancy Smith. They've made a donation in the amount of $25,000 to Elkhart Community Schools for the Engineering, Technology, and Innovation Building Fund. We have a second gift from the Elkhart Municipal Band Foundation for $500 to be sent to the Roosevelt STEAM Academy Music Department. Mr. Dean Ferguson of the Elkhart Municipal Band Foundation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And something that I don't think we have ever spoke about too is you can log on to our page to see our minutes, to see what fundraisers are active. And since this is such a unique situation, a unique year, I really encourage everybody to look at the fundraisers so that they can take the opportunity to support anything that's happening in the school. So on that, we have a motion and a second. Discussion. Anything else? Okay, we'll have to do a roll call since we have 2 of our members virtual. Ready?
Is there a motion and a second?
Yep.
Doug Weaver,
Aye.
Babette Bowling,
aye.
Sue Diver,
Aye.
Troy Scott,
Aye.
Rocky Enfield,
Aye.
Carolyn Morris,
Aye.
Kelly Mullen.
Aye. Okay, and this is our last evening of the presentation. Okay, so we're finishing up this evening with our last 3 schools that are doing the presentation, which is the school improvement planning process. And so, like I've said to each of the schools prior, I know that this is a very unique situation, and we know how very busy all of you are, and that this added a load to you to do this presentation for us. But it is important for not only us as a board to be connected to you in the event that we can't be in the building, but for the public to be able to see all of the hard work that you have going on. When you have all of these points of action that you have to do on a daily basis prior to the corona situation, and to be able to see how well you're all functioning and are handling the situations that go on. And as we move forward in what we need to do financially on behalf of the school, it's wonderful that the public, if they so choose to watch this, get to see what you guys have going on. So it's my pleasure that we have Eastwood, Hawthorne, and Northside present. And so we will start with Eastwood Elementary.
Good evening. I'm Victoria Hayes, and I'm the principal at Eastwood Elementary. I'd like to thank the board for offering us this opportunity to share Eastwood's spotlight of our school improvement plan. So I know you've heard a lot of these, so I'm going to start right away by presenting and letting you know my, let's see. And I want to go here. And here I go. So Eastwood has a diverse guiding coalition, and unfortunately, I only have 3 of my members with me due to COVID quarantines, but I do have Billy Joe Etchinson, my 3rd grade teacher and my technology person. I have Nikki Gurdon, my 5th grade teacher and AR representative, and I have Chrissy Herrick, my special education teacher. So our mission statement for Eastwood is that we want to ensure high levels of learning so that all students can learn. And we have a triad, academically, socially, and emotionally. And we feel that they can't reach their full potential unless we address all 3 needs. So in order to meet that mission statement, we have a vision. And we believe that every teacher has to work together in collaboration and that we have to embrace all students. So this means that we don't segregate out special ed, we don't segregate out E&L, we all means all and all belong in all classrooms. And that's important because Eastwood is a very heavy special education school. We have our high needs and we have an ED program, an ABA program, and then we have our regular mild disabilities. So we have our collective commitments and we are fully committed to pride. Pride is an integral part of our behavior plan. And you see the words highlighted in red. The actual promise is in child-friendly terms. And we say this pledge every morning at the end of our announcements. And then teachers teach and reteach these essential skills so that our kids will leave in 6th grade ready to go on to our middle schools. We have our shared vision and we feel that we need to have collective commitments. We feel that we have to actively embrace the PLC process, and our school is very committed to PLC. We meet regularly in PLC. We are doing common formative assessments. We're analyzing data. We are using that data to guide our instruction and give feedback to our students. We make adjustments to our curriculum where it's needed to push students or to do remediation. We made a pledge that we were going to make learning exciting and that we wanted to keep students engaged. We didn't want the Charlie Brown syndrome where it sounded like the teacher's lecturing with the want. And we communicate effectively. We feel if teachers can communicate with each other and with administration, teachers communicate with students, students communicate with students, and then we communicate with parents, we're all connected together on the same page. And we believe in providing interventions to all students. That means our high ability as well as our remedial, and that we celebrate our successes. But due to COVID, we've had to cut back on those successes. And we look forward to when we can lift these restrictions and go back to our assemblies and recognition awards.
I'm Billy Joe Etchison, the 3rd grade teacher, and I'd like to talk about Eastwood's PLC strengths. Our teams meet weekly on Fridays to plan and analyze data and collaborate. All grade levels have common prep times to collaborate on other days as well, Monday through Thursday. We have well-established procedures for our MTSS team, as well as interventions. Another strength is that we have each selected 10 essential standards in language arts and math to focus on for the whole year. We have a crisis team in place that's been properly CPI trained. We have strong collaboration amongst all our staff to meet the needs of all of our students. All means all in our building, truly. We have inclusion of special education students of varying needs in the general education classroom. We also have strong parental support in school activities and our school initiatives. I'd also like to just address our areas of need for PLC growth at Eastwood. Our areas of need involve the need for training, Trainings needed in the areas of classroom teachers needing training for special populations, supporting students with emotional disabilities, and also in the areas of high ability needs. Also in improving the use of common formative assessments. Thank you.
I'm Chrissy Herrick, and I'm the special ed teacher for 4 through 6 with mild disabilities. So the data that we looked at is really no different than most schools. Like Mrs. Hayes mentioned, we do have a higher special needs population. So along with iStep and iLearn, we also include the IAM, which is given for our intense intervention students, as well as WIDA, our dyslexia screener that we just started last year. We include student attendance, behavior reports, accountability grades, our IEP compliance reports for our special education programs, and the percentage of SIOP completion for our EL program, as well as our student demographics. So the areas of strength that we found is that Eastwood has a very strong MTSS process. It's very well defined, and it offers teachers guidance and support. We do weekly meetings to process our referrals and offer behavioral supports and monitor growth and progress. We also have a very strong pride framework, and this was done especially last year with our school-wide assemblies, not so much this year with our restrictions, but we constantly review the expectations and we intentionally recognize and celebrate our students' academic and behavioral successes. Our PLC teams are solid, and they have a focus on providing enrichment in addition to remediation. Like Billy Joe mentioned, our standards have been identified. We've unwrapped them. We have units of study that we've created, and we're providing common formative assessments for that. Our general teachers meet with our special ed teachers with intentional time spent on reviewing and discussing IEPs and how best to meet every student's needs. So what are the areas for growth that we found in our needs assessment? Well, we discovered that we need to continue to research and implement Tier 1 and Tier 2 interventions, including those for high ability. And in regards to discipline, we must research and create a common plan to build relationships with all students. We need to continue to equip teachers with ongoing training in the trauma-informed care and in social emotional learning.
Hi, I'm Nikki Gernon. I teach 5th grade at Eastwood. So we took this data and we came up with some hypotheses that helped to lead us to our goal. So our first hypothesis was referrals to the office led to students spending more time out of the classroom. Missed classroom time was reflected in the students' testing data. Chronic avoidance behaviors led to more office referrals. 3, chronic absences in our special education population likely led to lower testing data as well. And 4, students may be feeling stress and perceiving trauma while in school, leading to a lower desire to attend class. So our first goal based on this data is that by spring NWEA testing, special education students will demonstrate at least a 3 to 5 point increase on NWEA projected reading growth as a result of all teachers working to support students with Tier 1 and Tier 2 instruction in the general education classroom. Goal 2, all teachers and staff will receive trauma-informed training to better understand and respond to the needs of special education students, particularly those with emotional disabilities. As a result of training, there will be at least a 3 to 5% decrease in office referrals by spring of 2021. Our third goal, all teachers will become more knowledgeable in interventions and enrichments that can be used with all students, including special education students. Students will achieve at least 80% mastery of essential standards on at least half of common formative assessments by spring 2021.
So our action plan, what we're working on for the rest of the year, is we are participating in the trauma-informed care. We are on a projection to finish by December 18th. We're at about 50% finished, and I just sent out an email to get the rest of us done. Special education staff is doing a book study on Classroom 180, and they are continuing to offer trauma-informed care in addition to what the district is offering. So I'm very, very proud of them. We're going to continue to participate in PSYOP training from the district, and we're going to implement those features into our lesson planning. We're continuing with our SMECNS professional development, but then we're also going to align those SMECNS strategies with the PSYOP language objectives so that we are funneling all of our energy into where it streams into a central focus. We are finishing up tomorrow afternoon our science inquiry-based training with Douglas Hunnings from Ethos, and we're looking forward to that because we feel that that training will help our Tier 1 and our Tier 2 depth of knowledge questioning and writing responses. And then we're also continuing with our MTSS team to research our Tier 1 and Tier 2 interventions, like ScoopPad, MTSS trainings, UPAR, and Snap and Read. Those are apps that help students with reading disabilities comprehend better. So our progress toward these goals, we've done all 100% for 2020 PSYOP Canvas training, and our goal is to do 100% for this year. Our trauma-informed care teacher training is 100% staff complete. Our special education staff, which amounts to quite a few teachers and paras, were 100% CPI trained. All of my teachers have completed ScoopPad training. We have done ScoopPad essential benchmarks for every grade level for both math and language arts on those 10 standards that we identified, so teachers can see where students are really falling. Since we didn't have a lot of NWA data, it was very helpful. We're continuing our de-escalation staff training with our ABA specialists, which are behavior specialists that are in our school now through the ABA room. And then we're also continuing our SMECNS. And finally, I'll share a graph. This is our discipline data, and the blue is last year and the red is this year. We feel that because we're focused on the trauma-informed care that we are making progress. Those numbers in red look even a little higher than they really are because the attendance now is counting, and like every other school, we are struggling to get those students that are disenfranchised with the e-learning and with the virtual learning to attend. So we're still problem solving and brainstorming on that. And that's all we have to share with you. Thank you.
Yeah, Chrissy, I'm curious. This is your first year doing the dyslexia training or dyslexia testing. What did you find with that? Just out of curiosity, like, were we missing students that you just got trained in that? Did you catch more than you were like actually surprised with, or how does that fall?
Actually, it really goes along with the data that Ricky Myers has shared with us, where 1 out of 4 kids are pretty much being identified. Now, depending on how extreme that is with kids, as we know, dyslexia has a large range. And there are many different ways of addressing children with dyslexia. So at this point, it's really great because our gen ed teachers are able to at least figure out, hey, there's something deeper going on than what they thought. And now what we're doing is our second level of testing, where we're really finding out more information about those kids that were I guess, red marked for a concern for dyslexia.
Okay, yeah, I asked that because I just recently read an article about that, and I thought it was interesting. You're doing the testing, and it is so much broader than what people imagined dyslexia actually was, and so you can catch that quicker. And then I'm really appreciative too, Vicki, of the way that you kind of explained exactly the depth of the culture that's inside of Eastwood, because I think sometimes there is a persona of what maybe comes or is educated at Eastwood. And I think that, me being a parent that was there for 18 years and now having the opportunity to be there at a different level, I've seen that school grow in so many different ways. And And the training that you guys have listed at the end of it goes to show exactly how your teachers have evolved throughout the 22 years that I've experienced you guys, on how I don't think people really realize the level of emotional education that you guys are giving inside of that school. So, like, kudos to you on that. And my only thing is, I keep thinking about, like, the discipline when you guys talk about that, and so we're hybrid. So then I think about, is the discipline as deep as it was last year, and are you guys putting benchmarks out there that are going to be difficult to reach next year when we're back in full circle? And I don't want you guys to be put in a situation where you're, like, disappointed or you feel overwhelmed because maybe that's skewed. So how do you develop that differently so that it doesn't look like you didn't have any discipline issues, and then perhaps next year there's something happening, and then I don't want to revisit and be like, oh, great, you guys, now what? Does that make sense?
Oh, it makes sense. We are using this year as a practice because of the hybrid. The
Okay.
kids are split apart, and even our emotional disabilities room is split. So we are using this time with the smaller class sizes and that for teachers really to understand, how do you take this training and how do you apply it? So next year when the class sizes increase, it's not going to take us as much by surprise. I think that this is fortuitous that this actually happened, because so many of us, we're not the only school doing this trauma-informed care. It's giving us an opportunity to learn and to get better at this, because you can't grow if that emotional part of their brain is not ready to learn. So it's critical.
Good, great, thank you. That's excellent. Good. Okay, thanks, you guys. Does anybody have anything else? No. Okay, of course, like I'm not going to say this out loud, but I am. I'm a little partial to Eastwood, but doesn't really matter, right, guys? No, kidding. Joking. I love Hawthorne and Northside too. So, yeah. All right. Thanks, you guys, very much. Thank you for your time. Thank you. Okay. All right. Hawthorne, Eric, where are you?
I'm right here.
There you are. Hey.
All right, welcome everyone. I will present my screen. Just a moment, please. Oh. All right, welcome. This is, oh, stop, hold on. Sorry. All right. Welcome to Hawthorne Elementary's presentation. As you can see, we are the pride of the South Side. With us today, I'm not sure why it's going. I have Keith Baker, Helen Stegman, Matt Garber, and Jamie Bontrager. They are part of our Gaia Coalition and our school improvement team. The mission at Hawthorne. Hawthorne Elementary School will continue to advocate for an inclusive school community that is committed to academic excellence and integrity. We will strive to provide instruction in a caring, safe, and healthy learning environment. In collaboration with the community, we will be responsive to each student.
Keith's muted.
Oh. Hey, Keith, can you hear me? You're muted.
You're muted.
Hey, let's try this again.
All right.
Our vision of excellence, Hawthorne Elementary School, in partnership with its students, families, and community, will foster lifelong learners and responsible citizens. We will empower all students through quality instruction and challenging learning experiences in a safe and positive environment.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Matt Garber. I'm the Dean of Behavior at Hawthorne. These three collective commitments are new for us this year as a staff. We met as an entire staff earlier in the year and spent a lot of time just digging in and thinking through what are some collective commitments that we can all collectively agree upon to really grab onto this year, to really believe in, to really let drive the way we are within the school, with each other and with our students. And these were unanimously agreed upon by our staff The first being that we as a staff are committed to communicating courageously, clearly and consistently with all stakeholders, both in the building and out in the community and with our families. We are committed to being proactive, setting goals, and following through on our commitments as we build and deliver a guaranteed and viable instructional curriculum for our students. And we are committed to celebrating the successes and the growth and the awesomeness of our staff, our colleagues, our students, and our families together as we continue through this year.
Okay, can you all hear me okay if I'm,
Yeah.
can you all hear me okay? Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Okay, so as part of our needs assessment, we had to face some sometimes hard truths about our data, and we have a lot of growth to do. Some things that we learned that I think working here, I don't think was a surprise to any of us. This is something that we are constantly addressing, but our students often present significant social emotional needs and the lack of a positive environment because, you know, before we can learn, as we talked a little bit about in trauma-informed practice, before we are ready to learn, our basic needs need to be met, and our brain needs to be ready to receive that learning. And so that diverts focus from curriculum and instruction. It's been difficult to find appropriate pacing guides and curricular supports, and obviously supports that don't exist don't meet the needs of teachers or students. In the past, a guaranteed and viable curriculum has not existed to ensure that all students attain the skills and knowledge necessary to demonstrate their proficiency on iLearn and on the other standardized tests that we take.
Another section that we need to discuss was the hard truths, in being that all staff need support in meeting the needs of our diverse learners through a high impact, building-wide instructional model that facilitates high expectations and student engagement. Staff turnover has led to inconsistent training, knowledge, and implementation of core instructional strategies. Collective teacher efficacy and understanding of required instructional elements is lacking. Due to the deficiency of positive scores for special education African American students, we will have 2 subcommittees to assess how to better implement our instruction for these students.
So we have 3 main focus areas that are part of our school improvement plan. The first focus area is proficiency. And our main goal for that, not only this year as we're diving into it, but in the next few years to come, is to develop and implement a guaranteed and viable curriculum. We'll measure that by the growth that we intend to see on NWEA scores and on iLearn. Those scores may look a little different this year, depending on how many students end up actually taking those assessments regularly. But we're still pushing forward. Some things that we're going to do to accomplish that. First and foremost, we've established priority and supporting standards, essential standards that are reflective of our current academic standards. We have been taking part in PD over curricular elements and their significance in curricular development. We will be developing relevant and effective units of study as part of that. We've also worked on vertical alignment of standards across grade levels. As we do that, we'll be adding resources that include culturally relevant materials and support our units of study to make sure that when we say all means all, that we're including all of the different groups of kids. And then as we go, continue to reflect and refine our CFAs as needed so that they align with the curriculum that we're developing.
And then our second area of our focus area was growth. And our goal is to grow and maintain our PLC capabilities. And how we'll measure that again is through the iLearn, as far as increasing our growth through that, and also with our NWEA, with increasing the projected RIT scores for our students. We're going to do this through the introduction to the instructional priorities model. We'll refine current data collection and analyze processes to inform instructional decisions, specifically our CFAs. Our teachers have done a tremendous job in their PLCs of developing quality CFAs, collecting the data, looking at the data, and even looking to the point of, is this question, should we use this question ever again? Do we need to keep it? Do we need to throw it out? How is it benefiting our students? Also with the scales, this will also inform our tier 1 and tier 2 instruction for our teachers and our students, and we'll construct a building-wide system identifying expectations and common language relating to instruction.
So our focus area number 3 is our social and emotional learning. Our goal is to implement a comprehensive SEL framework that fosters students' acquisition of SEL competencies and effectively supports students in need of more individualized interventions. We will measure this through attendance data, and model attendee rates will increase by 7% by spring 2020, a decrease in disciplinary incidents, and an improvement in culture and climate data. And we're going to do this by establishing a framework in conjunction with Village to Village, which is a program where we're utilizing trauma-informed care and doing zones of regulation to focus on the social and emotional learning in the classrooms, and also the CASEL core competencies to support implementation. And we'll also identify system-wide needs related to policies and procedures, and establish an ongoing process of reflection to revise and refine SEL system and related relevant behavioral procedures.
So, along with these 3, the rest of the staff in this building have worked very, very hard to get us to where we need to be as we go forward. Equitable Education Solutions, through our competitive grant, we were able to hire them, and they have helped us with our CNA and our SIP plan. Nicole Creech is their representative, and she comes and she visits us monthly for a 2-hour PD. She comes and she works on curriculum, vertical alignment, CFAs, the whole gamut, and our staff are really, really, really responsive to her and her thought process and her strategies. Casey Honor from Solution Tree has come once a quarter. He's been to us twice this year so far, working on CFAs and the PLC process. Village to Village actually started in the spring of last year, and they're continuing their work with us. Smeckens, district-wide, helping with instructional strategies. The continuing reflection and refinement of the PLC process from where we are now from last year is simply amazing. And the work that everybody puts in their PLC process, and just like Keith said, working and debating and trying to find what is best practice for our kids is phenomenal, to say the least. And the commitment to actively pursuing the MTSS process with fidelity. We are going to hopefully in the spring also include SEL into the PLC process. And so I think the social emotional learning will also assist in making classrooms functioning for all students. One thing I forgot to mention at the beginning of the presentation, there are links to our school improvement plan, the instructional model, and the competitive grant that we did for this school year. That's all I have.
Thank you. And one thing too, thank you for your staff that has stepped up and helped other schools too while you guys have been on your little hiatus. That's very appreciative. I'm calling it your hiatus. And how has that gone? Like with you guys, you know, being out, like what is the connection with the children? Like what have you guys been doing? I know the teachers are concentrating on them, but like what have you guys been doing just to make sure that the needs are met? Has that been difficult during this 2 weeks?
Oh, absolutely. Checking attendance daily, home visits, in Google Meets, trying to figure out how we're going to get observations done, join a Google Meet, do a math problem about fact families with, you know, a certain class. I mean, it's just trying to do the best we can to support the adults, especially in the building too, because there's a lot of people in our area struggling tremendously with what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, thank you. All right, anybody from the board have anything? Troy?
No, just, you know, thank you for the effort that you guys have put into this in such a struggling time frame. I know sometimes knowing the hard truth, but then putting the data behind it is important, and I think you guys done that. And your goals outline a clear path now to overcome that. So I just want to say thank you for your hard work, and we know it's additional. And on top of, you know, everything else, you've had a hiatus here that we've been thrown at you as well. So thank you for your effort.
Yeah, and I'm excited too for your new addition of your staff. I think that you guys are going to be really blessed having Mrs. Bachman in your building also. She's excited about that. So thanks, you guys. And Helen, I appreciate the honesty when you laid all of that out. So thank you very much. Thanks, Keith. Matt, I can't see you, but thank you guys very much. Have a great evening, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye. All right, Sarah. How are you?
I'm good. How is everyone there?
Great, good to see you.
Yeah, let me go ahead and get this up. Okay. Is that up on your screen? Can you guys see that?
Yeah.
Okay, good, thank you. I have to admit, I have my little cheat sheet of notes on making sure I knew how to present my screen correctly tonight, but that wasn't something I was gonna mess up. So we have with us this evening, I have some of my Guiding Coalition members. I have with me Jessica Ramirez and Peggy Shadler. With me this evening, our Guiding Coalition is made up of all of our department chairs from the various departments, along with Mary Wisniewski and Chris Scalise, our assistant principals. And Jessica and Peggy were more than willing to help me out this evening. So, Peggy, you'd like to start?
Okay. First, I'm going to read our mission statement, which is at the top of the slide. Educating all students for their future success so they may become contributing members of society. And our vision, you can see the little husky icon there in the middle of the screen, contains many of the very important words from our vision. And I'm going to read our vision here, and I will be reading every single one of the words that's on that little husky. So here we go. The vision of the Northside Middle School is to be a caring staff focused on ensuring all learners believe in themselves and their power to achieve what's needed for their future. We accomplish this by providing safe and respectful environment where students master their academic skills and become productive citizens and lifelong learners. Our goal is to have all students demonstrate achievement and growth academically, socially, and emotionally. We're devoted to engaging students in instruction to build critical thinking skills, personal responsibility and growth, and respect for self and others. Our staff strives to promote a collaborative environment, to provide multiple opportunities for success, to to model and expect respectful behavior, and to demonstrate compassion and empathy while focusing on high expectations for all. In order to achieve these goals, collaboration takes place through staff involvement in PLCs, PBIS, MTSS, SIOP, TIC, and systems of care. Our middle school staff pursue academic success for all students through a guaranteed and rigorous curriculum. We address different learning styles and provide multiple opportunities for mastery through differentiation. Built-in opportunities for intervention and enrichment take place on a regular basis during the school day. Teachers create student-centered classrooms where adjustments to instructions are made based on academic and behavioral data. Daily objectives in the form of I can statements are posted in all classrooms and provide us a systematic direction and purpose in learning. We implement fair and consistent grading practices throughout the building. We manage to do all of those things, and we do them through an agreed and shared driving commitment. And we've agreed that our PLC will meet with intentional and focused agenda. We work on common curriculum, assessments, student progress, what's working in the classrooms, what's not working. We collect data on how well they're performing in their classrooms. And of course, that drives our instruction. Academic interventions, until this year when COVID set in and our schedules were messed up, we had success periods within our days, 3 days a week, and teachers would sign student planners and have them have specific students that they needed to see for interventions come to their classrooms at a designated time. And we could work one-on-one with students. We could work with groups of students. We got them caught up on missing assignments. We retaught areas that they were weak in. We also are involved in the multi-tiered system of support, MTSS, the trauma-informed care. We also are involved in the PBIS, which is the positive behavioral strategies. We have weekly drawings for students who are keeping their grades up and are not on getting any referrals. They come to the office, they get a reward. And then at the end of the year, we have, or in the middle of the year and at the end, we have big reward parties for the school. And those particular winners get their names put back in a pot, and then they're drawn out for even larger prizes. So it's a huge thing for the kids to be able to be in front of their school and show everybody how well they're doing. We also, of course, have a differentiated instruction. So we level our instruction to the needs of the students. We're very culturally responsive. So strategies are implemented in classrooms that help students feel like they're a part of the school. We use their experiences to anchor instruction, maybe making them feel maybe like an expert on a certain topic by being able to share what they know. And I already mentioned the PBIS. That's it for me.
Thanks, Jessica.
What I'm going to be discussing are the strengths and areas of growth for our PLCs. Using the guaranteed and viable curriculum, we really focus on our essential standards within our PLC groups. Our staff is great at collaborating, and one of the things that we also are including in our PLCs in really a systematic form is those 4 essential questions and being able to answer those as we go through the process. Working in any sort of our professional development activities that we have used within our classrooms and our building has been key to part of our success, including things like the Schmeckens training and MTSS, training the staff, as well as being able to implement trauma-informed care strategies. Our cultural audit for our areas of growth revealed that teachers don't always trust other members in our PLC teams. So this is one thing that we're really trying to focus on this school year in improving. And some of those ways we're doing that is communication within the PLC teams, working on trust within those PLC teams as well, holding each other accountable and really working to improve our colleagues together. Our administrators are also have increased the amount of monitoring within those departmental PLC teams, being able to always attend the meetings. One of them is there and participating and being a part of the process as well. Interdisciplinary collaboration is an issue that we've seen, and one of those reasons why it's just with everything we're doing in our buildings and working with students, sometimes we do not get to collaborate as much as we'd like. So that's something we're going to continue to work on. And, with the trainings from SIOP, it's been wonderful information, but we have a large EL population and we need to continue to implement those strategies as the years go on and we get more trainings behind us. So what we're using for our comprehensive needs assessment, we're really looking at our standardized testing data and the student demographics and information we get from that. Discipline data is an important one, as well as attendance. When we're looking at the attendance data, we've looked at the number of consequences that resulted in students being out of the classroom and missing instruction. And we are able to identify ways to decrease the time out for whatever various disciplinary reasons in all of our different subgroups. One thing that we have noticed, or a couple of things, the strengths that we're finding, our Hispanic population, the percentage of Hispanic students enrolled at Northside compared to the percent of those students who had out-of-school suspension has improved. And our African-American chronic absenteeism has improved from 21 students reaching that threshold in the 18-19 school year to 16 students in the 19-20 school year. As well as we're those students approaching that threshold of chronic absenteeism has also declined, which has been great.
And I know when Jessica talked about the number of students that, like the chronic absenteeism and that declined, I know that doesn't sound like a lot of students, but when you start to add up all those days and that instructional time, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 students really does make a difference. Other things that our data told us in our CNA is that we really need to identify students that fall into multiple categories, like our African American or special ed and Hispanic students. And we need to figure out ways that we can provide some specific and consistent support to these students in order to keep them in class, rather than having them being given more discipline referrals or being out of class for ISS or out of school suspension. And we really feel that through that tier 1 instruction and our, as a staff, gaining a better understanding of how they learn, the best strategies to use for those students, and their culture, their trauma that they've gone through, and how that impacts them in the classroom, that it's really very focused on, if we understand where they're coming from, what we need to provide for them, and what supports we can put in place, that we will really see a decrease in the time out of class. We also this year, and I think we started this last spring, but we also are really looking at how we monitor attendance. And I know Mr. Scalise, our assistant principal, and our social worker, Mrs. Russell, worked last spring and are working diligently this year in identifying those kids on a weekly, basis, several times a week. Who have we not heard from? Who are we not seeing participating in classes? Doing a lot of home visits, a lot of communication with parents and with kids. Even for our virtual kids, they're going and seeing those students. They're also seeing our hybrid kids. I have our ISS supervisor, Ginger Knox, when we realized at the beginning of the year that we needed a paraprofessional or somebody to monitor our study halls for our virtual students, Ginger stepped up and said, I want to do this. And she and I have worked with Tolson, and she's been able to go on several Fridays in the afternoon to Tolson. They've given her access to a conference room and some study areas. And she's had quite a few kids come to Tolson on Fridays just to get help from her. Some parents have come to get help with Canvas. How do they log in? Power School. So that has been a real positive for our school and for the community in terms of that communication and that link. The trauma-informed care, again, just understanding where those kids are coming from and what we need to do on our part to help those kids. Our hypothesis then, down at the bottom there, was the inconsistent monitoring of attendance allowed students to accumulate those high number of absences. Our culturally responsive Tier 1 strategies, we're not using those in all classrooms. We do see them, we do learn about them, but we need to be more consistent and more thorough in our use of those. And really identifying that small number of students in those dual subgroups and how they account for a disproportionate number of our out-of-school suspensions. What we plan to do, and I talked a little bit about this, I guess I got ahead of myself, I'm sorry. For all students, we're going to continue to provide timely and academic interventions. We don't have success period this year like we have in the past, but we do have independent studies. We do use our advisory time for students to get help from one of their teachers. They can go make up an assignment or just ask questions, get help. They can also be in the room where they're assigned, and those teachers are monitoring those students on a daily basis with their work and their e-learning. What we're finding is that kids will do the assignments while they're here and then struggle to do it outside of class on those e-learning days, which every building is experiencing, I believe. And it's not so much the fact that they don't have the internet at home right now. It's, I think, a middle school student thinking out of sight, out of mind until their grades show up or until they come back and somebody calls them on it. So then we use those times where they're here to really make sure they're doing what they should and the learning. Our SIOP last year, we did have 100% completion of the first round of SIOP training. And we are seeing that in our classrooms. And we're really trying to link that with the SMECNS training that our district is doing with our language arts and special ed teachers who focus on language arts as well. And then they're coming back and sharing that information with the entire staff. And then again, for all teachers and staff, trauma-informed care and SIOP training, that we will go through those and complete those this year. Our goals and action plan, one of the things we really wanted to do this year was make sure that we took our goals and we made our goals for our building and our action plans to be in direct alignment with the district focus, and just streamlining everything and really giving staff a chance to become good at something. And rather than having 10 balls in the air, can we only have 4 or 5 this year, and really make sure that we are able to spend time learning and understanding and being able to practice and implement the things that we're learning in our PDs. And this is our cute Bitmoji of our guiding coalition. And that's all I have for this evening.
Right, thanks, Sarah. Thanks, all of you. Thanks, Peggy and Jessica. I really appreciate it. And thank you for taking the time out. I know that you guys, it's such a long day. Eric, your staff did amazing. Of course, Vicky's not on here anymore. Jamie is so sweet. That's the first time, Eric, I've ever seen her. Not to jump back on that. There you are, Jamie. Yeah, you're really very pleasant to listen to speak. And Sarah, I really appreciate it. I know how hard it is. I know, like, you've got, on top of everything else, you've got the most hormonal group of kids ever in your school. So I can't even imagine that on top of everything else. But, you know, we are hearing great things on behalf of all three of our middle schools. I'm really proud of you guys. This is a super difficult time. And of course, my experience with you has been great. So I know you very well personally. I know how hard you work. And thanks, you guys. We just have to get through this, and, you know, we'll get back on task. But if nothing else, we've learned a tremendous amount about what we're capable of doing. And, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and this is a side note, it's been really interesting, even through last spring and so far this fall, there are some silver linings to all of this. We have learned some new ways that we are capable of doing business. Some of it is so minor that, you know, it has forced us out of just kind of our comfort zones, and we've had to change, obviously. And two examples that always come to mind for me, allowing kids to carry backpacks to class. Had I asked my staff, you know, hey, can we let kids carry backpacks to class? If I would have asked them that 3 years ago, they would have like locked me out of the building. No way, can't do it. Now my staff is saying, we don't ever want to go back to lockers.
Right.
Same thing with like allowing kids to have water bottles. It was one of those things that I think we had these preconceived ideas of what trouble a middle school kid could get in with a water bottle. And we haven't had any problems with it. You know, we haven't had them spill on iPads, and we haven't had them spilled on papers and all those kinds of things. So, you know, I still believe that as hard as COVID has been for everyone, that we will find, and we are seeing some silver linings that will change probably how we do things for a very long time.
Well, and I think you, sorry, Sharon, I don't mean to interrupt you, but going back to that, it's like you're giving them responsibility and accountability that perhaps they didn't have before. I know, like, I don't want to get in trouble because I know some of us are parents in here on different things, but having the opportunity to have the parents step back and that helicopter over their children to a degree has probably allowed them to behave a little bit more maturely, especially at your level.
Right.
But, you know, I think that that's probably been good. But also, like, I think, like, listening to Eric and Helen talk and thinking about the different ways that you have to approach discipline and looking at children differently, and the fact that you guys have had more collaboration time. Like, I'm a huge advocate that you guys always have your Fridays to utilize as a collaboration. If we could figure out how to make the school year work, that you had those Fridays to be in with one another and as staff. But I just, like, after listening to all of these, and I know that we ask so much out of you guys, you're truthful and honest, and we've got a lot of hard work, and we'd be lying to ourselves if we didn't admit that as administrators, you have to hold yourself at a different level right now, and you see that. And making sure that, you know, Brad and Mindy are playing the role that they need to, and being honest and having the conversations that might not be more pleasant, but have to be done. And as a board, being more connected to you and knowing that we need to have the expectations inside of our school. We've got the greatest gift, and Eric showed it right there with all of the different groups that work with Hawthorne. We've got all of the tools, you guys. Now we've got to pull it together and really give the community what we have to offer at a total level. So thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, and now you're done. Everybody's done with this. I'll see you guys with this again next year. No, I'm just kidding. All right.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, Eric, we're doing it again. Bye. No, I'm just kidding. See ya. All right, Doug, you're on. I broke my glasses again.
I'm a little wounded to see how many people are leaving the meeting as soon as we get to school board policy.
I know.
It's troubling. I'm here to, I appreciate it.
We are here for
My
you.
superintendent is here for me. This evening we have two policies that we're bringing to you for initial consideration. The first is a proposed revised Title IX policy. Historically, Title IX has been covered by our non-discrimination policy. During this past calendar year, the United States Department of Education made some significant changes to Title IX regulations, which really require us to develop a much more develop a much more fully developed Title IX policy. And obviously we moved from a, 2 or 3 page policy to a 15-page policy. That's a requirement of the federal law. And we lay out very clearly the processes that somebody would go through if they were to file a complaint, who has various different responsibilities in terms of enforcing Title IX, what are the due process rights of an individual who is charged with a violation of Title IX, and really what they're focusing on are issues of sexual harassment from students, as well as employees who might harass students, sexual violence against students, those types of situations. The federal government has required us to make some rather significant changes in this area, which are resulting in this policy, which we're bringing to you tonight. It really supplements current policies, which are 2160 and 3122 of your current policy manual. Bringing this to you for initial consideration. Recommending that you take some time to review this before we do a second reading. If you want to hold off on doing this on the 15th, I certainly don't see a problem with that, especially if I won't be here on the 15th. Happy to discuss any suggested changes you might have to the policy, concerns you might have regarding the implementation of the policy. Once we put this policy in place, we will also be doing rather extensive training of our staff in terms of the expectations that exist for them under the process, as well as training those people who will be actively involved in doing the investigation. It's much like some of the same things that we have done over the last, 5 to 10 years in terms of developing a very solid process for investigating allegations of bullying in the school. We have actually a very carefully, fully defined investigation plan that's in place when those incidents come to place. They're the same situation here in terms of Title IX. Happy to answer questions you might have at this point in time, or in the future as you continue to consider this policy.
So moved.
No, we're not. First reading.
First reading.
No, we're
Sorry.
You do not
You
need,
want to get past having to spend more time reading the 20+ pages.
I'm giving you that as your homework, Doug. That's your homework.
I like your red and green you use for the time of the year.
Yes.
You got to call credit to the coloring Dora in terms of preparing this document. The second policy that we're bringing again for initial consideration are some revisions to our fixed asset accounting policy. This policy really deals with our obligation to keep track of all of the various different assets that we might have in the corporation. It really is directed to us because of additional obligations the state of Indiana has created in terms of how we track all of those various different assets. Again, bringing this to you for initial consideration this evening. Happy to discuss any suggested concerns or changes you might have related to that particular policy. Again, nice Christmassy colors. Full credit goes to Doris Wasserman for that. Again, this is brought to you tonight on first reading.
Thank you.
So is that a software system, barcodes, readers?
We have an expert in terms of fixed asset accounting here in the room.
What changes that we're making to this, you'll notice that the threshold amount is changed to $5,000, which is the federal threshold. So that relates to reporting, new reporting that the state's requiring of us. We also added that line in there about donated items. There's questions about that and how you determine what the value of, say, a fire truck is donated to. So really, that's all this policy is.
Okay, thank you.
Again, brought to you on this consideration. Happy to discuss changes you might want to ask before we bring you the final approval.
Thanks, Doug.
Thank you.
All right, Tony.
Kevin asked me to read really slowly.
No, it's okay. Don't listen to Kevin.
On December 2nd, bids were received for waste removal for the years 2021, 22, and 23. After review and consideration of the bid process, the business office recommends award of the bid to Menco Waste Away Inc. of Elkhart, Indiana, as the lowest and best, most responsive bidder.
Bingo. Is that normal that we don't have anybody else that puts in the bid, or is it just?
Not normal at all.
Really?
Move approval?
Yeah.
Second.
Sorry. Ouch, sorry, I forgot about that part. Sorry, she got me. Okay, move.
Second.
Yeah. Okay, Tony, now I
Did we
can
always
ask.
have a 3-year commitment with our waste?
We have as long as I've been here, but this is the first time that I've actually had that. So I'm used to it. So we published it twice, as indicated in the letter, and sent out notifications in the entire bid package of the bid to 4 local companies. 2 of them indicated they would respond right away to the email, but we only Anco is our current provider and has done an excellent job. And as Mr. Scott informed me earlier, they actually have,
they participate in a rebate program. They allow us to make payment to them. So we receive $100. So they've been a good financial partner for us. So I'm not disappointed that there is current.
Good. Okay, we have a motion and a second, discussion. Let's do a roll call.
I got a quick discussion. How does this bid compare to the current?
It's about $2,400 a month more.
Is there, what's the reason for the increase?
Well, from what we can tell, it could be fuel costs, it could be added insurance. They didn't really give us. I think it's just an increase in the cost of doing it. Landfill costs can typically go up.
Yeah.
And so since the last bid was in 2007, we hold that number at 71, was it 74, maybe 20, it's $7,400 a month. It sounds like a lot, but 3 years later, I don't think it would be nice to have a bid.
Sure.
To compare them.
Sure.
I can tell you this number is still lower than the other 3 bidders. So they would have been low even back then. Yeah. So it just would be nice to have more, but that we did their due diligence.
Okay.
Ready?
Mm-hmm.
Doug Weaver,
Aye.
Babette Bowling,
Aye.
Lori Scott,
Aye.
I skipped 2 dice.
Aye.
Can't remember right. Rocky Enfield,
Aye.
Carolyn Morris,
Aye.
Kelly Mullins.
Aye. Thank you. Thank you so much. Hey, from the audience, do you have anything out there in Cyberland?
I have 2 people.
And we
Okay.
have 1.
Okay, so we'll do the one here. Yeah,
Okay.
definitely, yeah. And all we need you to do is just state your name and address, even though she'll be able to do that, but we just have to go.
Stacy Nelson, 51856 on 109 Elkhart, Indiana. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Stacy. I'm here today as a concerned single parent employee at Elkhart County City. We all come here having a meeting to speak together with me about concerns and goals in our school children. I am one of the lucky parents who have children who are old enough and responsible enough to continue their education online. I have one child who is actually getting better grades with virtual, but one child who is struggling with his grades. I recently took my youngest to get a haircut, which if you can get your haircut, I feel like you should be able to go to school. That really concerned me. I'm sorry, hold on. And speaking with the beautician during this visit is really what made me come here today. As she was speaking to my daughter and asking her if she loved being home for school, that really concerned me. As I entered the conversation, she also mentioned how she has to ask her son every couple days to change his clothes and how she just enjoys the extra time with him. This really upset me. I asked her how keeping him home to fill some type of need for her is helping her son become an adult who will contribute to society. Her face was completely dumbfounded. I don't think she expected me to say that, but what I could see is her brain actually thinking about him and not herself. I'm requesting all of us in this room to open our minds for other possibilities. We need more possibilities more than we've ever had before. Like a possibility of changing summer break to winter break. It concerns me that we can have physical contact sports, but we can't offer full day in-person learning. As a family, you can go into a restaurant, but you can't have full day in-person learning. And I could go on. Dr. Fauci said in November 2020, if you look at the data, the spread among children and from children is not very big at all, not like one would have suspected. If I've done my calculations correctly, then there is only a 2.8 infection rate among our schools in Elkhart County. That is leaving 97.2% behind in almost an entire school year. Which one is worse is what I asked myself. Just today, I spoke to a local teacher who said her entire family was quarantined, sorry, I'm nervous, for a month due to COVID. That was back in October of last year. This virus has been circulating for longer than anyone really knows. Right now in China, 195 million students K-12 are learning in person in Chinese public schools. And meanwhile, millions of American public school students are learning in a failed remote system. It's great that the school system has created a hybrid option, but that does not do anything for the single parent with young school-age children. It does not help the children who need in-person learning. Just a little while ago, there was a survey asking a community what we would like for next semester, which is another great resource. What I'm curious about is what the survey said. I would like to formally request all replies be posted without names being printed. If there is something I am not seeing, hearing from the community would be amazing. Another question of mine is why not open the schools up for full-day in-person options? I have heard because the classrooms would be over the CDC recommended value, so that leads me to believe that the survey did not come out as overwhelming to stay hybrid and virtual. It also makes me believe that there are more parents wanting full-day in-person learning because after months of trying to be the role of a teacher, it's too much and the children are the ones affected, no one else is. I'm hoping my statement this evening will open up some more opportunities for our children to succeed in this world. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. You did great. Thank you.
Very cool.
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, the next person we have is Charlotte Sutton. I call them in right now. We'll see if they answer. They might know like. It'll show up in the ring number, yeah.
What? Oh.
Charlotte?
Oh, you should have to remember. Okay.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes. Charlotte, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, we just need you to state your name and address, and then we'll give you 3 minutes to talk, okay?
Okay, my name is Charlotte Sutton, and my address is 528 Concord Avenue, Elkhart, Indiana, 46516.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah,
yes.
We can hear you.
I think she got the YouTube video in the background. It's about 30 seconds.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Do you want to mute your YouTube video?
Oh, okay. Lord have mercy. Let me figure out how to do it.
I didn't even know there was a YouTube video, so you're good.
Honey, I don't know how to mute it. Wait.
I don't either.
Okay. Well, let me.
Oh, look it. You can hear yourself.
I just put it on pause.
There you go.
I put it on pause. Okay. Mine is more like a concern, but it's referring to the continuance of employment of support staff. Now, I do work at Elkhart East in the food service department, and my concern is, I understand that we have to take assignments that takes us out of our comfort zone, and that's to keep our time, our hours, and our compensation. But to maintain a safe workplace for our employees, I don't think that's happening. I've been in 4 different schools, and the school that I'm at right now is very small. And so since the 2 high schools have closed, we are piling in on junior high school kitchens, and they're not very big, minus the space that the tables, the ovens, and the coolers take. We're constantly walking past each other in an aisle less than 4 feet wide. And I'm there 7 hours, and there's 6 other people that's there 7 hours. So in 7 hours, we have walked past each other, and it accumulates more than being around each other for 15 minutes. And I just don't feel safe. And I want to know, is there any other alternative for getting our hours than being crowded up in these small kitchens? Come Monday, I will be switched to Hawthorne once they open back up after spending 2 weeks at Westside and then being at Bristol and being at Eastwood. I am being overexposed if there's any COVID out there. And I do have an ailing mother that has survived lung cancer. And she's got a pacemaker and a defibrillator, and I'm her only child that can take care of her. And I just feel this exposure is too risky, and we don't have a choice.
Well, I want to tell you that I appreciate your call and your concern. And the best we can do is listen and direct you back to, Pam and Tony. Those are the key people for you to speak to. So if that is good, and, of course, we're praying for you and everybody else, and if you want to just direct your concerns and start there first, that would be wonderful. But I greatly appreciate you calling.
Okay, can I answer that?
Well, no,
okay.
Yeah, but we'll start there. How about you start there, and then if we have to revisit that, we will. So start there.
Well, I have.
Okay, then you're not, okay. And so then, I think then the superintendent is like your best choice. And I think that you should feel very safe and comfortable talking to him. And so if you've gone there, I'd like you to just make an appointment to meet with Dr. Thalheimer, okay?
Okay, all right. Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Have a blessed night, okay? See you later.
You too.
Okay,
Bye.
bye-bye. Huh?
Cheryl Wagner, I commented that HR can also help with that.
Oh, okay. All right, well,
But
we
we
got
have
to,
her name, so we can.
yeah, we can do that.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
I'll give it to Cheryl.
So the last person I on the list is Gertrude Williams.
This is good.
Oh, great.
It's really good.
Yeah. Hello, Gertrude?
Gertrude, can you hear us? Hello?
Hello.
Goodbye.
Hi.
Gertrude?
Yes, I can hear you.
Hi, could you?
Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you. Can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Uh-huh. Can you hear me? Yeah? Go ahead. Okay.
She needs to mute her video.
She there? Okay, Gertrude, are you there?
Hello.
Hi, how are you? Good. Do you happen to have the YouTube video running behind you?
Yes.
Okay, can you pause it?
Yes.
Okay, great, fantastic. So go ahead and state your name and address, and then you can start talking. What? 3 minutes. Yep.
I do.
Yep. What's that? Oh, did you hear me ask for your name and your address?
Oh, no, I didn't hear you say that. My name is Gertrude Williams, and my address is 400 West Cleveland Avenue, Elkhart, Indiana, 46514.
All right, thank you. Go ahead and start talking.
I just had a concern for the kids that's coming into the schools, and once they get into the schools, they catch a fever, and they come down to the lunchroom, and they get sick in the lunchroom. So I was wondering if you have any plans in a way for us not to walk through if they are tested positive, not saying they're positive, but do you have an action plan where we can be safe when we are walking through the sickness?
Well, I can definitely direct you to, who? Do you think? What? Pam? Yeah. Well, you should start with Pam, and then, definitely talk to Tony Gianisi for sure. They have great plans of action, and they will walk you through that, and if we need to visit something further from there, we will definitely do that. So start with your building administrator, and your building administrator will direct you to Pam and Tony, and then if we can't get answers from there, we will direct you to the next place. At the school that you are at, where are you?
I'm at Marybeck.
Excellent.
Elementary.
Okay, so start with your building administrator, and then from there, we will go to Pam and Tony, and if we need to take it farther from there for a plan of action, we will visit it then. But I really appreciate you calling in with your concerns.
Okay, thank you very much for letting me have this opportunity to even ask my question and say my concerns.
Well, and I appreciate you taking the time to do it, and have a blessed evening, and thank you so much, Gertrude.
Okay, bye-bye. Thank you.
All right, bye-bye. That is the last one. Thanks, you guys. Thanks, Ryan. Okay, and on that note, no, darn it. Oh, shoot. Oh. Did you see how slick that was? All right, okay. Thanks, Kevin. So from the superintendent.
The school board has been recognized by the Indiana School Boards Association, so I am passing it over to Susan to provide you the recognition.
What have we been recognized for? This is exciting.
Yeah, a little star on our.
You tried.
No,
You tried.
no, I would never.
Exemplary Governance Award.
Oh, you got a really pretty one.
That is nice.
And some pins for some of the members, a couple that aren't here. But, Kelly, get one. Get a pin. And I'll let you look at it, and we'll hang it somewhere nearby.
Beautiful.
And one goes to Doug as well. And there are more for Rocky, and they have that as well. It's from ISDS.
Thank you. That lets you guys know that I spend a tremendous amount of time on webinars. Tremendous amount of time on webinars. This knowledge comes from a deep, deep place. Just kidding. Okay. Anything else? I tried to go right past you.
Well, I didn't hear what the award was for. I'm sorry. I would love to know what it was for.
Exemplary Governance Award. And you get a pin.
Excited.
I figured you would be. All right.
I have nothing further.
Okay, he has nothing further. Okay, anything from the board? No? Okay, well, you guys, thank you for another, yes?
Oh, yeah, we can do that.
Oh, yes, 5:30 for the meeting.
5:30, business meeting, no
Yes.
work session, no executive session, no presentation.
Just a straight meeting, 5:30. Okay, thanks, Carolyn. See, I don't know what I'm gonna do without her. I'm like, seriously, not sure. All right, so thank you guys. Thank you, Ryan, again and again and again for everything that you do. I put that in the notes. So many thank yous to him. Okay. All right, meeting adjourned, and we will move into executive. Okay, so they need to go out and come back in, right?